Welcome to Storytelling. This week's guest is an executive coach and operational consultant with nearly 2 decades of experience helping leaders eliminate friction and optimize performance. With a foundational background in technical engineering at Honda R&D, he combined systematic data-driven frameworks with real-world leadership strategies. He's also an accomplished endurance athlete who has tackled 19 Ironman 70.3s, 2 World Championships and an Ultraman. Please welcome Adam Ward. Hello, Adam, and welcome to the podcast.
Debbie, thank you so much. It's an honor for me to be here.
Adam, most organizations don't suddenly fail. They slow down, they lose momentum, decisions take longer, teams become less agile, and growth starts to stall. What are the early warning signs that an organization is slowing down before leaders see it in the results?
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent question. A lot of times companies will have me come in. They're like, Adam, can we show you what's happening? And in 30 seconds, I know. And this is the clearest signal that a company is doing that. It's stacks. So whatever that stack is, it could be a stack of meetings, it could be a stack of papers, it could be a stack of inventory. But when I see stacks, I know that things are taking longer than they should. It's the same as traffic. If the road is empty and someone gets pulled over, traffic continues to flow smoothly. If it's rush hour and something happens, you're basically stuck on a parking lot for a couple hours. So stacks is how I can tell if an organization, and honestly, how they could tell if their own organization is struggling.
Why do leaders often miss these signals until performance has already declined?
A lot of leaders equate busyness to output, and they wear stacks as a badge. They see it around them and they think hero mentality. They have people who put in extra overtime. They have people who come in on the weekends and they think, wow, I've built this culture of high performance. And the ego gets in the way of them realizing that it's actually them giving the customers less than what they were originally giving them.
Is there a pattern that you see repeatedly across industries, so across different companies?
I mean, what I see in the professional arena right now, and honestly, since COVID, is people's calendar. It's 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. now. There's no disregard. There's double bookings, triple bookings. And there's no time for bio breaks. I see that everywhere. That's one. As far as tech solutions, everyone is adopting an AI tool, and all they're doing is automating waste. So they're still doing the same inefficient processes. They're just doing them faster. And so those are 2 things that I'm seeing across every industry that I encounter right now.
What behaviors from leaders unintentionally create these bottlenecks? Because you just mentioned, for example, they're using AI, but to do the same things that they're doing over and over again, which is helping to create bottlenecks.
Yeah. So if you are a frontline employee and you are actually creating the product or service that your organization sells, you should be 100% focused on operations. If you are the CEO, you should be 80% strategic, 20% tactical, 0% operations. And as people rise from the front line to lower management to upper management, they get promoted based on what they did versus what they're capable of doing. And they like to hold on to that operational foundation. And too many times they don't give up the job they were doing before. And no one at the top is actually doing the strategy. And then the ship kind of just steers itself.
So if no one at the top is doing strategy, one of the things that may get in the way, and especially if someone's been recently promoted doing what they've been doing, is maybe the ego
Yes.
of the leader.
Yeah, I think Obviously when you get a promotion, you feel good. And then there's expectations you put on yourself, regardless of whether anyone else is putting them on you and you're trying to forge your path. And when businesses get big enough, they can't see everything and they don't have time to see what's going on. And what happens, I see, is pet projects start bouncing up all over the place. And these pet projects become an inherent cause of the stacks. So there isn't a strategy that says work on this project because it's going to deliver this. It's a bunch of leaders trying to do good things that they think are for the company, but it's not in alignment with where the company should be going. And that's usually not really clear the further you go down from the C-suite.
So how does one go about removing some of these obstacles, particularly, as you mentioned, people have their pet projects, which they think is aligned and it's not, and also the issue with the stacks as well?
The number one tool that leaders can do is have a crystal clear mission statement and the 3 to 5 year goals that they want to accomplish, and then what initiatives are going to drive those 3 to 5 goals. And if they drive it directly, the project stays. If they don't drive it directly, the project needs to get put on pause, or my preference, stopped completely. Leaders struggle a lot because most organizations get projects approved based on who's the loudest. So you've got really influential people making great suggestions. They know all the lingo, the ROI, the impact on customers. They know everything to say to get their project approved, but the strategy isn't aligned to something. And I had one client, they're like, well, how many projects are we running? A couple hundred? And we went and did an audit, and it was over 5,000. And just a completely overwhelming number, almost 2 per employee. It was a insane number. And so we went through and we chopped everything out but the top 30. And it felt extremely draconian, a lot of emotions around it, but it set crystal clear what the priorities were for the next year. Now, as you can imagine, the trickle down effect is if it's not one of those, we're not working on it. So immediately some of the stacks started disappearing because 5,470 projects were suddenly not a priority. So things like that can help, reduce the stacks. And when I see stacks from an executive standpoint, your resource allocation is your most precious commodity. And the number one abuser of that is too many projects. So it's a stack of projects. And if you can reduce that by being clear about your strategy and what initiatives you're running, you're going to make tremendous progress almost overnight.
And you say tremendous progress overnight. What does that look like for the company?
So, if you watch rowers, it's so cool. Not just like a single rower, but if you got like 5 or, some rowers going down, the cadence and just how well they take each stroke together. Fortunately, at this client, we had a local university that said, let's all row together. And so they were able to paint that image of rowing together, that hyper focus on everything being in alignment is what really propelled them. So that synchronicity of effort just pays huge dividends.
From a practical viewpoint, if a CEO or a senior leader is listening today and suspects that their organization is slowing down, what questions should they ask themselves first?
So here's the deal. My first suggestion would be to go walk where the frontline employees are and to talk to them. If they haven't done that in a while, it can be very intimidating for the employees. The employees will usually give some pretty pat answers. But if you go down far enough, you're going to start to get honesty. So you want to just pick up on those 1 or 2 little complaints that almost seem snuck in. That it's like, okay, yeah, there's something I need to focus, because every level of management you go through, they're filtering things off to make things look good. So I always like to say, interview the furthest down in the organization you can. But honestly, the very simplest test is open up your calendar and how many double or triple bookings do you have for the day, for the week? How long does it take for someone to get a 30-minute appointment with you? And if that question's more than a day, or someone gets bumped if they have to see you today, then that's a pretty telling sign that you're living in a world of stacks.
There's a controversial question there, though, because
There is.
because there are some companies who live off that culture of stacks and live off that business of I've got a full day and couldn't possibly fit you in. And for some people, that's what success looks like, although for others, it's a complete nightmare. How do you break that culture, that cycle, without breaking down those people who rely on that stack system?
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent question. And there's an exercise that I run with leaders. I call it the leaders focused few. And what I do is I sit down with the leaders and I say, okay, give me a list of things that only you in your role can do. So let's take a personal example. Let's say you're a dad. Let's say you're a husband. Like only you can be the husband. Only you can be the dad. So if there's something your kids need or something that your wife needs in one of those two roles, only you can do it. But then there's other things, and particularly at work, that don't need. And I can't tell you how many executives say, I was invited to this meeting. I sat the whole time. It was a waste of time. I shouldn't have been there. So if they make a list of exactly those things that they need to do every day, there's a list of things they need to do daily, a list of things they need to do weekly, et cetera, for monthly, quarterly, annually. And then if their calendar reflects that list, they're on the right track. And you can be 100% booked if it's to that list and you can be effective. Now, personally, I would say you need reflection time and thinking time each day. And sometimes a lot of executives do that when they're working out. And I think that's excellent. But I find a mismatch between what they say they need to do and what shows up on their calendar. And that mismatch is opportunity. So, yes, I mean, you can look at the world's highest performing organizations and they're busy from sun up to sundown. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the busy from sun up to sundown perfectly aligned. And if you need to do something that, but like, so let's say I need to be available in case an emergency pops up for one of my direct reports. Only you can do that. An emergency pops up, I have to be available. That means you need to have a slot on your calendar each day for emergencies. And so it's not crystal clear cut, but that's an exercise that really opens eyes of a lot of leaders.
Are there any distinctions between a commercial entity versus a charity or a voluntary organization?
You would like to say yes. So I find 80% of my work is identical across any industry. And I've worked in 18 different industries because people are people, right? And ultimately, we decide to align with an organization, either if it's a volunteer organization out of alignment to the mission statement for corporate, whether we need to make our living and the mission statement is close enough and we're okay with it. So I think the big thing that comes when we do with charities and nonprofits is the people are usually more passionate about that mission, and they will go vote with their feet if that alignment to that mission is threatened. And that's why it's so critical that leaders be even tighter when it comes to nonprofits and volunteer work.
And what can a leadership team do in the next 30 days? They've listened to our conversation. They're thinking, okay,
Mm-hmm.
for the next 30 days, we want to create some sort of measurable momentum. What can I do to create that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing would be they have to go realize what are the success barriers that we've put in our place that are evidence as a stack, and how can we approach it humbly and address those? Maybe say, okay, Adam, that may be a little too esoteric. Okay, practically go talk to one level below you, the next level, do a skip, and one level under, 5 minutes, coffee, chat. How are you feeling about your job? Any improvement idea you've come up with over the next year that you think would really help us? Those two things, and you'll have more than you can probably work on over 3 months.
Is there an example where you've had to use some of these examples for yourself?
Yeah, I make sure that the people closest to me know what's happening. I had a really high performer who did a lot of work, and he was a senior member on the team. This was for a volunteer nonprofit, and he kind of rallied the team a lot, but he was not aligned with our values. A bit of a renegade, kind of did what he wanted. And those are the hardest people to wonder, like, what do we do with? But he was keeping the rest of the team back. And I had to make the hard decision to get rid of him. And of course, there was blow up with him, very emotional on his side. You're never going to be able to do anything. I did everything. And ironically, like the organization flourished almost immediately after that. So that's probably one of the toughest things for leaders to do is to get rid of someone. I've never had a leader tell me, I'm so happy I waited to get rid of this person. So when we're looking out there and you're like, okay, practical example of a stack, you could have a person at your org that doesn't align to your mission, and they're keeping the rest of the team back. They're launching pet projects, they're making their own decisions, they're serving themselves. And it could be a team member. It'd be the most powerful thing to make a statement to the organization. And that's one that I go back on frequently as a pivotal point of that organization when I was leading it.
That's a really great example. I think it just makes it a lot more real because no one likes to get rid of staff, as it were. But I think the difficulty is approaching or having those difficult conversations.
A lot of leaders don't have the courage to do it, and they think performance will fall. But it's ironic. I had one leader and my last client. I told him for months. I hounded him, and at the end, we were doing a debrief, and he said, I wish you would have pushed me harder to get rid of that person faster. And I'm like, I was doing everything but signing the sheet, signing the sheet of getting them out. And so it's very hard for a leader to do that. I think they need to find someone that supports them on it, and then they can have two allies that are doing it. Makes it easier that way.
And on the contrary, if you have someone who is fully aligned, but they're being held back by others who may be throwing obstacles in their way, how does one tackle that?
Yes. Well, I always advocate for promoting way before people are ready. I think a lot of organizations, they want to hold on to their high performers because they're afraid of what their department or unit is going to be without them. It's a very selfish move on managers. When I was in organizations, my goal was to make people who'd replace me as fast as I could. And I love this quote. And it's like, well, what if we train people and they all leave? What if we don't and they all stay?
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's incumbent on leaders to find high potentials and move them to leadership positions earlier rather than later. Yeah, it works very well when you do it that way.
What would you say the future organization looks like, knowing what you know, having visited so many different organizations?
The companies who are going to win are going to be crystal clear on what they're delivering to their customer. They are going to be crystal clear on how the resources are allocated for achieving that. And they are going to have exactly the passion in their teams. Now, this is a controversial example, maybe at least here in the US, but SpaceX. Unwavering focus on space exploration. Completely dominating the launch industry right now. You watch a launch, you see the employees, they go nuts when the rocket takes off, right? They go nuts when it re-lands on a platform. I think that's an excellent example of when I say what a future organization looks like. Now, every organization is going to have issues, but from a performance standpoint, they're absolutely hitting it out of the park right now.
With that in mind, what's the one takeaway that you would like the audience to have from what a future organization looks like?
I think the biggest thing I want people to know is if you're a leader, you can do that. You have the responsibility to deliver that, and you have the capability. So just muster a little courage and do it. You'll not be disappointed. So try it, figure it out, write it down, bounce it off of somebody. you know what to do, just to go do it.
Great words of wisdom. Adam, thank you so much for sharing your experience and knowledge, and thank you for being a guest on this podcast.
Oh, Debbie, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
If you would like further details about Adam, then please follow the links in the show notes.